From broken to blooming, the power of recovery after profound loss. Have you ever wondered what happens when life shatters completely? When the pieces are so broken, you can't even recognize what they once formed. I recently had the profound honor of interviewing Taeisha Jamison, a true beacon of hope whose wisdom on recovery and resilience has transformed countless lives. Through her extraordinary work helping people navigate their darkest moments, Taisha has become something of a modern day alchemist, turning grief into purpose, trauma into healing, and despair into possibility. Her insights illuminate a truth many of us need desperately, that even after the most devastating losses, new life can emerge, not just survival, but genuine flourishing. The thing about profound loss is that it doesn't announce itself politely. It crashes through the door of your life without knocking. It doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't respect your boundaries. And in its aftermath, we're often left with the most haunting question: how do I possibly move forward from here? This is the question Taisha has helped so many answer. Through her warm, soulful guidance, she reminds us that recovery isn't just possible, it's our birthright. But it requires something from us, something beyond the just stay strong platitudes we're often handed. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Sarah. Sarah founded the Kayla's Hope Foundation after losing her daughter to asthma. The day her daughter died, Sarah's world imploded. There was the overwhelming grief, yes, but also the crushing medical bills, the sudden realization that resources for grieving Black parents were virtually non existent, the isolation that felt like a second death. I couldn't breathe, she once shared. The irony wasn't lost on me that my daughter died because she couldn't breathe, and now I was suffocating under the weight of my grief. For months, Sarah barely functioned. She moved through life like a ghost, present but not really there. The pain was so thick, so constant, she couldn't imagine it ever thinning enough to let light through again. But then something shifted, not dramatically, not overnight, just a small opening, like a hairline crack in a sealed room. Sarah found herself in a grief support group, surrounded by other parents who understood her pain without explanation. She reconnected with her faith community, not for answers, but for presence. And slowly, so slowly she barely noticed at first, she began to breathe again. I realized I had a choice. She said, I could let my daughter's death be the end of my story, or I could make it a painful but powerful chapter in a longer narrative. Sarah chose the longer narrative. She founded Kayla's Hope Foundation, dedicated to raising awareness about asthma in Black communities and supporting affected families. Today, that foundation has helped hundreds of families access life saving resources. They host annual awareness walks. They've distributed thousands of asthma care kits. They've established scholarships for children with chronic respiratory illnesses. But here's what's most remarkable: Sarah didn't start this foundation because she was over her grief. She started it while still deeply grieving. She didn't wait until she was healed to begin healing others. This is what Taisha Jamison means when she says recovery isn't linear. It's not a straight path from broken to whole. It's messy, it doubles back on itself. Some days feel like progress, others like regression, but movement is still happening even when we can't feel it. Now, I want to be crystal clear about something. When we talk about turning pain into purpose, we're not romanticizing suffering. We're not suggesting that tragedy happens for a reason, or that your pain only matters if you transform it into something productive. Your pain matters because you matter. Full stop. But what Taisha has observed, what Sarah experienced, What countless others have discovered is that channeling grief into meaningful action can be profoundly healing, not because it erases the loss, but because it honors it. It says, this mattered. This person mattered. This pain matters. Let's look at another powerful example. Rachel Cargill founded the Loveland Foundation after experiencing her own mental health challenges following her mother's death. The depression that followed was crushing. But what made it even harder was realizing how few Black women had access to quality mental health care. I was fortunate, Rachel has said. I had resources, connections, privilege that many Black women don't have. And even with those advantages, finding culturally competent care was exhausting. What about everyone else? That question became the Loveland Foundation, which provides financial assistance for therapy sessions for Black women and girls. To date, they've raised over $5 million for therapy grants. Thousands of women have received care they otherwise couldn't access. Again, Rachel didn't wait until she was fixed to start fixing a broken system. She began while still in her own healing process, and that work became part of her healing. This brings me to Taisha's second crucial insight. Community and spirituality are powerful tools for healing. We live in a culture that glorifies independence. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, go it alone, keep your problems to yourself. But this approach is fundamentally at odds with how humans actually heal. The Black Women's Health Imperative understands this deeply. Founded in 1983 in response to alarming health disparities affecting Black women, this organization recognizes that healing happens in community. Their programs don't just address physical health, they create spaces where women support each other through chronic illness, where they share resources, where they remind each other they're not alone. One participant described it this way: before finding BWEI, I felt like I was the only one struggling with my condition. Now I have a whole sisterhood who understands exactly what I'm going through. We celebrate each other's victories and hold space for each other's hard days. This is what Taisha means when she talks about leaning into community. It's not just about having people around, it's about having people around who see you, who get it, who don't need you to pretend you're fine when you're not. And for many, spirituality offers another crucial dimension of support, not as a bypass around grief, but as a companion through it, not as a way to avoid feeling pain, but as a framework for making meaning of it. Sarah from the Kayla's Hope Foundation describes how her faith community showed up for her. They didn't try to explain away my loss with religious platitudes. They just sat with me in my pain. They brought food. They remembered my daughter's birthday. They let me be angry at God sometimes. And that kind of spiritual support, honest, messy, real, became my lifeline. Now, I can almost hear some of you thinking, that's great for them, but my loss is different. My pain is too big. My situation is too complicated. I hear you, and Taisha would too. There's no comparing suffering, there's no hierarchy of pain. Your journey is uniquely yours. But here's what Taisha wants you to know, what she's seen proven time and again: recovery is possible even after profound loss. Not recovery that erases what happened, not recovery that pretends the loss wasn't devastating, but recovery that allows new life to grow around the wound. Recovery that makes space for joy to coexist with grief. Recovery that lets you be both broken and whole at the same time. This kind of recovery requires support. It requires faith, not necessarily religious faith, but faith in the possibility of healing. And it requires intentional action, even when that action feels impossibly hard. So, what does this mean for you right now, wherever you are in your journey? First, reach out, whether that's to a therapist, a support group, a spiritual community, or a trusted friend. Isolation deepens suffering, connection eases it. This is not just feel good advice, it's neuroscience. Human connection literally changes our brain chemistry in ways that promote healing. Second, check on someone else who might be struggling, not to fix them, just to remind them they're not alone. Sometimes the smallest gesture, a text, a meal, remembering an important date, can be the crack that lets light into someone's darkness. And finally, consider how you might channel your own pain into purpose. This doesn't have to be founding an organization or starting a movement. It might be as simple as sharing your story with one person who needs to hear it, or volunteering an hour a week with a cause that matters to you, or creating art that expresses what words can't. The point isn't the scale of the action. The point is the intention behind it, to make meaning of suffering by creating something life giving from it. I want to leave you with this challenge. Tomorrow, when you wake up, ask yourself what one small step you can take toward healing, either your own or someone else's. Then take that step, no matter how tiny it seems. And the next day, ask again, and the next. Because this is how we transform our broken pieces into something new. Not by leaping, but by stepping, not by forgetting, but by remembering differently, not by erasing our wounds, but by filling them with gold. The world needs your healing. It needs your story. It needs the unique wisdom that only comes from having been shattered and putting yourself back together in a new way. Your brokenness is not the end of your story. It might just be the beginning of your most important chapter. As Taeisha Jamison has shown us, when we have the courage to face our pain, to seek support, and to create meaning from our suffering, we don't just recover, we become lighthouses for others still lost in the storm. And in that transformation, we discover that our deepest wounds can become our greatest gifts to a world desperately in need of healing.